Today, I will show you how you can generate, rig and animate your 3D AR characters directly inside ComfyUI with just one click in no time. This workflow will speed up your 3D work way faster than ever before, and it's really easy to set up. The best thing is, it's entirely free and it runs locally on your own PC. Having said that, let's dive right into it. Hey guys, and welcome back to the channel. As always, for the ones who don't know me yet, my name is Philip from Pixel Artistry. I'm a professional 3D artist exploring the world of AI-powered 3D generation. And today I just wanted to show you a really cool workflow where we can directly generate, rig and animate our character inside ComfyUI. We only need 3 requirements for this. One is that we need to have Trellis 2 pre-installed. For this one, I will use again the ComfyUI Easy Install package. In case you would like to set it up, you can either join our free Discord or you can follow my latest Trellis 2 video, which will exactly show you how to set up Trellis 2 in the ComfyUI Easy Install package. So definitely make sure to check that out. And what we need to do then is to install ComfyUI Unirig, which will then rig our character, as well as HyMotion, which I will also show you, which will then be able to animate our character. In case you already installed the ComfyUI Easy Install package, what you will need to do is just go to add-ons and then just run again the trellis2.bat file over here, this one with the brackets. And in case you haven't yet, make sure that you go to ComfyUI, then to user, manager, and then that you right click on the config.ini in here, and that you then go to edit a notepad, and then just make sure that your security level is set to weak here. Of course, be careful then with what nodes you install, but we need this because otherwise the installation won't work through the manager. And then make sure to file and save, and that's it. To make the installation as easy as possible for you, I also created again a .bat install file. You might remember from my previous videos where we also did that. So here you can then find it in the drive folder that I will link you down below in the video description. Just make sure that you click here on the 3 little dots and download the file. Once you have that, go then back to your ComfyUI Easy Install folder and make sure then to either paste it into the add-ons folder or directly inside here. So I will just make sure to put it in here. And once I have it here, it's the HyMotion-Install.bat file. I will simply double click it and then it will start directly downloading the files. It will automatically download all files you will need for this workflow. So just make sure that you be patient during the installation because it might take a while, can take up to 10 to 20 minutes. So depending on your internet connection. So just make sure that you leave it open until the very end. The script will also tell you that once you can close it again. In case you already had installed previous nodes, like for example the geometry pack, just make sure that you go to your custom nodes folder or directly in the ComfyUI Manager and to first deinstall those nodes. For example, this one here, as well as Unirig in case you have downloaded it, for example, before this video already. Just make sure to delete both files because once Unirig installs through the manager, it's important that we have old nodes removed because it will implement a complete new setup for you and otherwise it won't work. And once you have that, you can then already start ComfyUI. Then just make sure to start the ComfyUI flash attention.bat file over here. Alright, so once we have ComfyUI opened, what we need to do then is drag and drop in the workflow we are using in today's video, and you will find it as always down below in the video description. And what we need to do then is I already have this one here prepared. So what we need to do is then just drag and drop in the Pixel Artistry anim workflow file over here. Then just drag and drop and you will see that we have a bunch of missing custom nodes, and this is basically the installation now for Unirig and HyMotion. So what we need to do is that I'm going here to manager, then install missing custom node. We should be able to easily install them through the manager. So let's do that quickly. Just make sure here that you're using Unirig and the HyMotion one, and you could also install this one here from Jiah. I think I'm just using a node over here, so just make sure to install both. That should be no problem. And then we can hit here install. And then after the installation is done, just make sure to restart ComfyUI. Please wait a bit. It could take a while because it's setting up all the requirements and so on. But then once you restart it, there should be no red nodes anymore. Just make sure to also refresh your browser. Alright, and once you restarted ComfyUI, just make sure here to refresh the browser. So we will reload. And then as you can see, we don't have any red nodes anymore and we can start with our workflow. By the way, a big shout out here to the node devs who developed this workflows. So here, big shout out to Polsetti Andrea who did that. And on the other side, also Terry Jiah and also to AeroX for creating the ComfyUI HyMotion directory over here. So once we are back to our workflow, first thing you will notice is that we have 3 different sections that we can use. We have for once, we have here the 3D model and texturing section, where we will generate our model in the first place and generate textures for it. Then on the next one, we have here the rigging. So this is where our character gets auto-rigged directly inside ComfyUI. And then as a last step, we have here the animation part, where we can then drop in here a prompt and then our 3D character will get directly animated inside ComfyUI. And to get started, I always like to do it step by step. You can also run the full workflow by changing the switches over here. This is why I built them in. So when you set them to 2, the whole workflow will run. But apart from that, what I like to do is disabling them for now. So we will start with the generation over here. And once we are happy with our model, we can then move forward with all the other steps. And this will also save your VRAM, by the way. This is why I built in the switches here. So basically, once we have our model set over here, we can then upload it here in the trellis to load mesh, and we can change the selection to 1. And then it will save us a lot of VRAM, and we can then run each step individually, which will give us more control and you won't require that much VRAM to run the work. So basically just make sure that you're choosing with control all the other nodes and then you press Ctrl and B, and this will bypass all the nodes except for the ones we need here. And as you can see, I already generated a model of Spider-Man over here because this is the character we are using today in this workflow. Just to show you quickly what the workflow is doing, I uploaded here 2 images to use the multi-view feature. So basically we have them one time in front view and one time from the top view. And by the way, in case you wonder how you can generate this top view, what I did is I just went into Nano Banana and then I had here my front view from the space image over here. And then I said, please show top view. And then I had the top view, which I was then able to directly download from there. And then I was able to plug in both images here. Main reason I did that is because I achieved way better hands, as you can see here, because they are spread apart. And in this image, the AI just sees it from the front. So it will hallucinate then and try to get the details right. But as you can see, the hands are working here way better. And this is why I'm using 2 images. It will then remove the background from our images over here. And once it does that, we have then here the mesh generator. Here you can set the settings then. I also explained some of the settings already in my last video about Trellis 2. But apart from that, you can see that my main settings are here, that I have the token number quite high. I have chosen 1024 cascade for good results. And I chose here a sparse structure step of 50 and the shape steps as well really high, as well as the texturing steps. Then it's going here to unwrap your model and give it UVs, as well as texture your model over here. So this is the main settings I chose here. I have a texture size of 4K. Then I have a target face number of 500K faces to not have it too high poly when it runs through the animation workflow, but you can always experiment with this over here. And then as you can see, this is the result we are getting. Once you are happy with the generation, you can also change it from randomize here, the C trace to fixed, and then just play around with the settings just to show you quickly when I would run the workflow again to see what we then get. All right, and once the generation is done, you can see this is our result. We can also look at it when we go to model and then over here to normal. And as you can see, this is then also our normal detail for this character. And this gives us now a great base that we can use. Also, as you can see here, the fingers kind of spread apart. So this is for AI purposes quite good. And we can use this now also for the hand rigging then. And by the way, in case you would like to improve the texture even more, you can always go to modif.com. I can highly recommend it to you because there you can then retexture and repaint your models with AI, and it's way faster than the traditional workflows and it will give you a great result. So anyways, once we have that here, what we can do now is going to our next step, the rigging phase. And what we can do then is that I'm going here and enable the load mesh. Then I will just make sure that I'm going here to upload my most recent mesh now. So I will do this quickly and I will change the input also here to 1. So it will take this one. Then I will go here to my ComfyUI output folder, just navigating here to output. Then I will search for the latest model that we just generated by sorting by date. And then as you can see, it will also have here the name Trellis 2 Mesh. Then I will just going quickly to upload it. just remove then the double quotes over here and then make sure to hit enter. And once we have that, I can now go from here, and just to be safe, also let's bypass this one and enable this step over here. And once I have that, I can then just quickly unload my models over here to release some VRAM and then run the workflow again. And now it will start to rig our character. And then once done, you will actually notice that we now have here our rigged character. And this is really cool because we have here a good preview, how it looks like. You can also see how the reference is and how it then attaches the bones and so on, which is cool for the orientation check over here. And once we have that, you can also test your rig by, for example, selecting here one bone and then just shift it up and down. And as you can see, this is working well. We can then come next to the final step, which is then animating our character. So I will just quickly enable this one again, disable the old one like we did before, and then I will just make sure that I hit here refresh. And now I can choose here my rig character. In this case, it's giving here an automatic naming, which is MIA, which stands for make it animatable. I will also put you a link down below in the video description where you can check out the GitHub repository in case you're interested. Anyways, what you can do then is that we're choosing here the latest one, which is this one over here. So it's called rigged_MIA and then the date and then the number of it. By the way, in case you would like to change the name, you can always change that by putting in here FBX name, and then you can change it here. And then once we have it loaded in, we can then also make sure that we have here input 1 selected, so it's taking this one over here. And then just to make this workflow run as well is that we need to first download these core models here, because HyMotion is, by the way, using Qwen here for the text encode loader, so we need that. And you will find here all links down below that you can use. In case you have low VRAM, make sure that you're using the HyMotion 1.0 Lite and put it in the checkpoints. You can always switch between both of them over here, so in the HyMotion DIT loader, and then you can choose here the light version or the full model in case you have a better GPU. Apart from that, I'm using here, for example, the GGUF version just to make the workflow a bit faster and that it doesn't take as much VRAM as usually. So I'm using here GGUF. I have the device to CPU that it's using my CPU for it, and as well we have here the text encoder. So just make sure to select all of them in the node itself. In case you just plug them in, make sure to hit R and to update them, and then you can plug in the models here. And I'm using here, for example, this example prompt, which is a person performs a taekwondo kick and extending the leg forcefully. And I'm making sure here in the settings that the character in place, because otherwise it will move around. I will also show you how that looks like in a second. But apart from that, I want to have him in a pose like this. I want to have him in place. Apart from that, you can also play around here with the neutral fingers, because this is obviously the biggest challenge, which you will see right now, getting the finger animation right. So I have that most of the time set to fails, but you can also play around and set it to true to see what works best here for you. And let's just run the workflow and see what we get. All right, great. And this is then our first animation. And as you can see, it was quite successful. We have here our character. He is floating, obviously, as you can see here. So we will fix that in a second. But apart from that, he's doing the kick. As I mentioned already, the most tricky part are the fingers for now. So let's see if that gets improved over time, but I'm sure it will with each update. This is something we have right now. Of course, we can then also load it into Blender, for example, and try to improve it with the amateur rig that we have over there. But apart from that, let's try to improve the settings now a bit, so at least that he is standing on the ground, and also let's try it on a different character. So basically what I will do to improve it is that I'm making sure that he is also standing in X, Y, and Z in the same pose. And one more thing I can do is making sure that it aligns to the ground. And for example, we could also say over here in number of samples, how many samples of the same character we would like to have. So we can also increase this, for example, to something like 3, and then it will generate 3 samples of the same characters for us, which is really cool in case you would like to have a crowd animation or something like this. So let's run the workflow again. Okay, and once generated, as you can see, we have him now on the right level, like on the origin of the world, and we have 3 different animation because it of course uses different seeds for each sample, which is cool. So we also have an offset, and you can use then those ones directly then in Blender, for example, which I will show you in a second. I will now for one time run the whole workflow with another character, just that you see that this is also possible and how you can do that. So what we need to do is only thing just changing this to 2 in the value section over here, this one as well. And once we have that, we can upload here then the other character. So what I will need to do is then just choose file to upload, then choosing the other character which I prepared for this tutorial like this. And once we have that, I can then run the workflow already. Just make sure that you clear your VRAM again and your memory as well. When you see that your memory is not going down because something is cached, make sure to restart the workflow, because you will need more VRAM and memory for this workflow when you run it at once. So just make sure that you go to Manager, restart ComfyUI, and then you can run the workflow once it then reconnected. All right, and once our workflow ran through, as you can see, we have here our new 3D model. Then it piped in here as with our Spider-Man, and as you can see here, we then have 2 new characters. I just chose as a sample size over here 2, and when I let it play, as you can see, I changed a bit of things. So basically the range is much longer now than what we had before, so I changed that here, the duration to 12, which is the maximum at the moment. And you can see as well that I disabled here the in place option, at least for this one. So as you can see, they are not standing now on the origin anymore. They are just running around, because the prompt I chose here was the person runs athletic. And then as a last step, to import your animated models and to look at them, what we need to do is that we go to File, Import, and then this time FBX, because they will be exported as FBX files. So make sure you have that, and then make sure that you go to ComfyUI Output, and in my case it's my Jiah, because we set the naming over here. But for God's sake, please rename it, because I didn't pay attention to it, but I think you can do much better than me. So just make sure to rename this one, for example, to Spider-Man or whatever. And also the file name prefix you can change here, and then you will have way better naming than I do right now. Anyways, when we go back to Blender, so now we can then import our character. For example, I can choose then one of the characters I generated. So for example, this one here. So this was the floating one we had, but we could also pull him down now if we want in the Z-axis by pressing G. And once we have that, then as you can see, when I play now the animation, we will see that he's moving. Of course, it's stuttering a bit because it's the Blender viewport, but you can actually see that we have him moving and so on. You can of course also hide the amateur by going in here, and then you can see we have here our Spider-Man model, how he's moving and so on. And when you generate multiple samples, don't get confused, they will be always split in different files. So when I go back here into my folder, you will see that you have the same naming here, but 000 and 001. This is basically it. You can then generate as many models as you want. For example, I also have this one here, so I could of course always make sure to move the amateur, otherwise you will get deformed. But you can see that we then have unlimited versions, and I think this is really useful to kind of play around with, you know, to have animation offsets, and this could become maybe also already useful for like background characters in games and so on, in case you're a game developer. Otherwise, feel free to play around with it. Of course, this is not perfect yet. As you can see, for example, the hands are very stretched and stuff like this. So for hand rigging, I'm sure there will be improvements in the future. I still wanted to show you that because I think it's a cool way, and we finally broke that barrier that we can animate directly locally on our PC in ComfyUI, and I think this will be the next step that we dive in this direction. And I wanted to show you one very important fix that we can still do in Blender, because obviously, as you can see, the hands are a bit screwed right now, especially the fingers around this area, but there's a quick fix how we can change that actually, so that you can directly import it into Blender and then fix this kind of mistakes. It takes just around 20 seconds or something, and then you're already done and you're good to go. So basically, to do that is that we first need to go to our object mode over here. Select then the rig that we have over here from our amateur, and once you have that, we then go back to the pose mode, and then you will see that you have an overlay here. In case you don't have that yet, make sure to enable this icon as well as the transparent view over here. And once we have that, we can now select our finger with the bones where we see the finger is screwed overall. And first thing we are going to do is that we go here to the timeline, and we're going to delete all those keyframes that we have over here, because those ones are screwed, and if we would scrub over the timeline, then it would snap back in case we change the finger now. And what we can do now is basically to move it into the right position. And I will do that quickly just by hitting R and then rotate the finger kind of in the correct position that it fits, or at least looking better than what we had before. Okay, and once positioned, as you can see, this looks better already. We will do the same with the thumb now. And then as you can see, this is already looking way better than what we had before. And what we can do now is actually when I play this animation, you can see that our finger will stay in the correct position so that we don't have this stretching anymore like we had on the other hand. I'm pretty sure this will also improve over time, that we don't have to do this manually. But I think for now, this is a quick and easy way to fix those things. So I really hope you have enjoyed this video. As always, let me know down below what you think of it, and let me know your favorite prompt that you using for those animations. In case there are any issues, always feel free to reach out or join our free Discord server, and make sure to join my free newsletter Future Frames. Having said that, see you on the next one.